This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
I had to pause for a second, because in my head I was like, what do I say? Because you're not Brandon, you're not Dave, you're not Sean, you're Mark Weber. It's the Mark Weber, and we're here for the Onside Kick, your pro football podcast here on MVP. It feels good to say that, even though the XFL is not a thing yet, but we got a jam-packed show. We're continuing our previews. We finished the South today, Mark.
Yep.
We did the NFC South. You can check that on our YouTube channel and on podcast services across the world for the Onside Kick. We're trudging on into the AFC South, where we'll start with the least, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we'll go to the best, which was the Houston Texans last year, and go team by team through this preview. Before we get started, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That is where you can help support us. The $1 tier, the lowest. You get things like access to the Discord server. We had a new $1 patron. Villarreal, I think, is how we said it during the live stream. And I guess Sean was correct. New $1 patron. He's now in the Discord. Sean was saying it Italian when it was more Spain, I guess. But you could be in the Discord, too, for as low as $1. You also get the MVP podcast a month early before everyone else. And also, first time I can say this on a podcast, if you have a Twitch Prime membership, go over to Most Valuable Podcast, the twitch.tv/Most Valuable Podcast. If you have an Amazon Prime and you're not doing anything with your one free sub they give you,
Or your life.
Yeah. Why not give it to us? I mean,
you're gonna give your life to MVP.
That's the pitch I give. If you're doing that with your life, why not give it to us?
We will do something with it.
And
what do we do with it? Who knows? It's our choice.
And if you're like, Ricky, what is that? Amazon and Twitch, they give you a free, if you have Amazon Prime, a free sub each month that you can use, and it's just free money that you can just throw at creators.
This is honestly partially for me, but also for the people watching and listening. What does that actually do? What does that give them?
So that would be a question for Dave. I just know that it's a free, Amazon gives you the sub.
Yeah.
To where it's like, hey, it's free money that you can throw at a creator that you like. That's the bare minimum of what I know about it.
Tells me it's just Google. Tells me it's a premium experience.
Bingo. I know there's something like eventually.
Bonus games, I guess.
Eventually in the future, I know because Kind of Funny does this, where what they do.
I've seen it on some people, but I'm never really on Twitch enough to know.
One example, because they do it, is let's say we're going to do a live onside kick, and we were going to do a pre and post show.
Yeah.
We can make the pre and post show subscriber only.
Cool.
So it's stuff like that. So if you want to, because we're just starting up the Twitch stuff, want to support us on Twitch and have Amazon Prime and not doing anything with it, send us over your free sub, twitch.tv/Most Valuable Podcast. But let's get into the actual podcast, Mark, because the intro went a little bit longer than usual. We are going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars and going through how we usually start these. Offensively, yards per game, they were 27th last year, averaging about 302 yards. They were 31st in offensive points per game, about 15 points in a contest. Defensively, though, they were near the top. Defensive yards per game, they were 5th. 311 was what they were giving up. And then points per game, they were 4th. A stingy 19.8 is what they gave up last year. When it came to free agency, not a lot going on. They re-signed some guys, but some big signings coming in. They get guys like Nick Foles, the big one, to a 4-year, $88 million. They get Alfred Blue to kind of be what I would think the third stringer behind a TJ Yeldon and a Leonard Fournette. And then also signed guys like Jack Ryan, Chris Clooney, and Cedric Bluhy. I hope I said that right, offensive tackle.
It's a fun name.
Signed him to about a $895,000 contract. So the big question here, I think we got to tackle the offense, because the defense is fine. I know I'm going to ask you about Jalen Ramsey, and they told him, hey, we're not going to look to extend you this season. Like, we're not going to get in those talks this year. But I think we got to talk about the offense first because, in all honesty, they were bad offensively.
They were.
And I know Jacksonville fans will be like, whoa, Ricky, you got to pump the brakes because we lost A.J. Hearns. He was in Dallas. We lost Allen Robinson. He was in Chicago. Da Bears. Marquise Lee got injured. There's our top 3 wide receivers from the year before. Then Leonard Fournette only played in 8 games. Led the team in rushing. 8 games. Tells you something right there. And then Blake Bortles was our quarterback. Is Nick Foles going to be enough to bring this team back into a playoff hunt? Because their offensive coordinator is John DeFilippo, who got fired from the Vikings.
Yeah, and it's one of those interesting things. A team like the Vikings, who had tons and tons of weapons, and he wasn't able to use them. So now you take John DeFilippo and you say, here's a team that got a weapon or two, not as many as you had in Minnesota. Can you work with these? And I think that's a tough ask to say. Guy wasn't able to do it when he had a lot, so now can you do it when you have a little? Because it's not like they're barren. You know, you've got Marquise Lee still. You got Westbrook out there who's all right. Terrell Pryor is an interesting one, but he's not a guarantee to make the team necessarily even. And if he does, which I think Terrell Pryor will make the team, I don't think he's going to get a ton of usage. What you really have is Leonard Fournette, and then you've got the question of Nick Foles. And I'm not trying to question Nick Foles necessarily before anybody gets mad at me for that. He's a Super Bowl MVP, but...
Some would say as good as Peyton Manning, if not better.
Some would say as good as Peyton Manning, if not better. I love that so much still.
All because he also threw 7 touchdowns in a game.
And he did it before Peyton Manning, too.
Was it the year before Peyton Manning, I think?
I think it happened in the same year, same season.
I'm going to have to look that up.
But anyways, the thing I need to see Leonard Fournette be there for 16 games. I need to see these wide receivers be there, and I need to see somebody step up because they lost 2 great, good to great, depending on how you want to rate them, wide receivers a couple of years ago. But when I look at Nick Foles, my thing that I think of with Nick is he is a very safe quarterback in a lot of ways. And, you can try and look back to him when he was failing with the Rams, but that's Jeff Fisher. Anyone's going to fail with the Rams. Before that, with the Eagles, he did really well. He was a little boom and bust, but he's kind of learned to be a little bit more of that secure kind of guy. High completion percentage. He's going to make smart throws. He's not going to get too many interceptions. In a full 16-game season, I feel like he'll probably have more interceptions than you'd like, but not too many. I feel like with touchdowns, it's kind of boom or bust, though. Yeah. You either have a game where he throws a lot or you have a game where he throws none. And you look at some of these teams that he faced when he threw against Chicago last year in the playoffs. Yes, he had 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. And his completion percentage for Nick Foles was lower. Because usually in a lot of these games last season, he was sitting in the 70s. He's got a game where he was at 84%. You look at these times when he faces these better defenses, like the Rams, for example, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Against the Atlanta Falcons, no touchdowns, 1 interception. It kind of becomes rough. Against the Saints, for example, in the playoffs again, the game they lost, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. You just get a little bit nervous, not because of Nick Foles. He's got the ability, but when I sit there and I think, are they hoping they're going to get the Super Bowl game against the Patriots out of Nick Foles, where he was amazing, 65%, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 373 yards? Are they hoping for that? Same thing with Minnesota. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 352 yards. He's just kind of a little unpredictable still, to where I feel like they're going to be setting all of their hopes on Nick Foles to fix everything. And it's going to almost be a Kirk Cousins-like situation. A little different than Kirk, but Minnesota fans said, we have Kirk Cousins. We are winning the Super Bowl. And it's not that simple. There are other things that go into it too, especially when the Jaguars are a team that your star running back needs to stay healthy, and you don't really have a true number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing I will say, I got 3 things I'm thinking about. Number 1, I'll mention it because you said the true number one receiver, do they technically need, like, the thing that I think about, and I know people are going to throw out about when I mentioned Allen Robinson earlier, it was some people may say who are Jaguar fans, well, that didn't matter. He was injured the year before, so we hadn't had him for 2 years.
But before that, he was doing really well for your team.
But, like, if I go back to 2017, which was the year that they almost made the Super Bowl, I look at it, and it's like, when you look at receiving, they did not have a 1,000-yard receiver. Their best receiver was Keelan Cole, 789, 3 touchdowns. The only other wide receiver that played other receiver that played 16 games was Mercedes Lewis, and he only had 318. So I almost look at it and go, you don't need a main guy if you've got a ton of guys. They had freaking Cole. They had Lewis. My computer decided, hey, we're going to go back to last year's. But the main thing is Leonard Fournette was also healthy.
Yes.
He only played, 13 games?
And they had their defense, which was good last year too, but their defense was incredible.
But yeah, like Cole, Lewis, Hearns, D.D. Westbrook was just getting into the offensive system.
But a thing to remember too, though, is the big criticism on the Jaguars, the reason why a lot of people were shocked they were as good as they were, and also doubting them at the same time for the Super Bowl, was they weren't good enough on offense. Fournette couldn't carry them the whole way.
And that's what I feel like Nick Foles is going to be able to get it done. And when I say that, it's not like, well, we got to put this whole franchise on Big Dick Nick's shoulders.
Yeah.
It's going to be what you were mentioning. If he can, because if you look at Blake Bortles had his best year in 2017, but it wasn't anything like super amazing. Like, yeah, he threw for 3,600 yards. Matt Ryan's out here throwing for 4,400. Yeah, he had 21 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. Not bad, but not great. And then a 60% completion. Like, Nick Foles in this offense, they just need to, for me, be able to just not turn the ball over, have that high completion percentage. And the thing that I wonder, and we haven't seen this from Nick Foles, was his success in Philly a product of the system? Was it a product of what Doug Peterson has put in place in Philadelphia that allowed him to be successful? Yeah. Also, there wasn't much pressure on him because a lot of people were in the mindset of, well, once Carson comes back, Carson's our quarterback. Nick Foles, thanks for the Super Bowl. We love you here in Philly, but Carson's our guy.
Yeah.
Like, we drafted him for a reason. He's our guy. And he never had that pressure of, like, I have to be the guy. Where in this situation, he's the guy. Like, there's nobody above him.
And I think it's interesting because maybe we'll also continue to get an answer to the John DeFilippo question here of how much did he have to do with that Super Bowl run with Nick Foles? Because he's the offense coordinator. They've reunited that
because there were 3 of them.
Here.
There were Reich, Peterson, and DeFilippo.
And DeFilippo was the bottom of the bunch, it seems like.
And I find it funny. The Eagles, playoff team last year. Frank Reich in Indy, our boy Shane O'Mac's going to love it, had success at Indy.
Yeah.
John DeFilippo didn't have success in Minnesota.
Not at all. So it's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, it doesn't have to all be on Nick Foles because they've shown that with Blake Bortles that they can get production out of someone if they're not, Peyton Manning. Although some would say Nick Foles as good as Peyton Manning. But, what I think the true key here is going to be that balance and having Leonard Fournette be successful and be healthy. If they can do that and they can't have him get hurt and all of a sudden they go, we don't have any running backs now. We can't get anybody running the football. If you have that, you are going to fail. And this is a team that has a great defense. They should continue to have a great defense next year. That shouldn't be much of a change. And that's going to help them out quite a bit too, because even if the offense isn't absolutely stunning, they'll still do just fine with that defense.
And someone's probably already commented on it, but I looked at the depth chart at running back finally and was like, oh, that's right. That's why they signed Alfred Blue, because TJ Yeldon's now in Buffalo. So the running backs, because I was thinking, like, if Fournette's not there, who do they got? And if Fournette's not there, let's say he's not healthy again, Alfred Blue and Thomas Rawls are your next two, which, hey, Alfred Blue,
They've
former
got Benny
backup.
Cunningham, too.
Yeah, they do. Benny Cunningham. So it's like the first two,
Stacked.
former backup from Houston, former backup from Seattle. We'll see what they do. Before we move on to the defense, I got one last question about the offense. The tight end. So Mercedes Lewis, who's been there for years, like I mentioned, 2017, played all 16 games but only had 300 yards. I look at these tight ends and I go, who's the one that's going to step up? And the thing that I wonder, and I know it was, he's a third-round draft choice this year, and this might be too much of a loaded question to put on his back already, but is Josh Oliver, the tight end they got from San Jose State, is he the one they're going to rely on early? Or is it just basically, hey, we're going to throw someone, like we're going to try to get Oliver going, he's the future, but let's just put somebody out there and hope Nick just makes one of these guys better.
Yeah, I think it's going to just be, we're just going to have guys out there and throw to whoever you need to throw to.
Whoever's open, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Just have the security. You've got Fournette there too, so you can throw the ball to him. It's going to be a bit of a question mark, and I don't necessarily know that we're going to have a standout type of guy. It could be Josh Oliver because they're tight ends. You can get a tight end in the third round and have him be successful.
Yeah.
But I mean, remember we made a huge deal about the Lions taking a tight end as early as they did. But I don't necessarily know that they're going to have one guy who's going to be a standout in this situation. They might not have one standout guy in the entire passing game. It just might be very even all across the board.
Well, and now moving on into the defense, to me, there's not a lot to pick with the defense because this is the best unit of the Jaguars. Probably
For sure.
The only thing on the field is Josh Allen, their draft pick from Kentucky, is he going to find a lot of playing time? Because there's a lot of big names in this defense. But the thing I want to start with is Jalen Ramsey. And Jalen Ramsey is 2 years out. So he's 2019, 2020. Then he's an unrestricted free agent. The team told him that they are not going to forego or they're not going to continue contract extension talks with him this season. And he was talking to the media at training camp. He said it. And one of the question the media was like, well, did they say, like, they're not going to do it now? Like, are they just not going to extend you? And he goes, you know what? That's what they told me. You guys take it as what you want. Like, all he was saying is they're not going to extend me. I'm assuming that is like right now, like, hey, let's see how much that mouth moves compared to how much production is this year, because you still got we still got you next year. We exercised that fifth option. What is your thought with the Jalen Ramsey contract extension? Is this just we're not going to do that until the final year?
Yeah.
Or is this something where it's like, hey, we're going to see, is that mouth worth the paycheck we're going to have to sign?
Right now, if they re-sign Jalen Ramsey, he's going to be probably the highest paid corner in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. So they really are in no rush to do it. There's no reason to. Just kind of let him play. If he goes down a little bit in production, great. You can drop his price a little bit. If he goes up, you were already going to pay him the most out of anybody in the league anyways, so what's it matter? When I look at it, that's my thought of they're just waiting because there's no rush. There's no reason why they have to do it now. They can wait. They can get it done, right after his contract's expired, get everything out of it, and then you can go ahead and re-sign him. Because they might also say, hey, we were pretty bad last year, and this might not be a big open conversation, but they might be thinking, if we need to trade somebody, we could get a lot for Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
It's possible. We're not saying we're going to do it. We're not even saying we're likely to do it. It's just we don't necessarily need to extend him right now. We could let somebody else worry about that if we need to. We don't want to do it, but if we need to, we could. Odds are they're just going to end up re-signing him towards the end when they have the choice, but they also could just franchise tag him. And they're going to probably give themselves that option as well. Because essentially, why not? The owners have a much stronger leg to stand on than the players do when it comes to these negotiations.
Well, and that's also the thing too of like people. You just type in Jalen Ramsey's name into Google, and it's like, should the Chiefs target him? Should the Raiders target him? Should the Jags even trade Jalen Ramsey? And for me, I do not get into those trade talks until after this season. I see how this year goes. Because also there's an article on NFL.com basically from a week ago where Jalen Ramsey, it says Jalen Ramsey won't give Jags discount on next contract. Where basically the quote is, next year, especially after I ball, they're going to come to me, hey, you know what? Hey, we want to holla at you. And then he whistles. That number is going to be so ungodly, he said, whistles. That number going to be so ungodly, they're just going to look, gives wide-eye stare. So to me, I almost feel like here's how the Jalen Ramsey thing is going to play out. They're going to play him this year. Next year, Jalen Ramsey's going to say, here's my ungodly amount. They're going to say, thanks for playing with us. We're going to trade you.
It's possible.
Like, that's what, unless they, like, the other route is, like you mentioned, they could say, no, we're not going to do that. And he's going to say, fine, I'll go somewhere else. And I'll go, double not so fast. Here's a franchise tag for you.
Yeah.
And then it becomes was it, fuck, I'm blanking on his name.
Le'Veon Bell?
No, not Le'Veon. Panthers corner now with the Redskins. Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah.
Didn't he do the same thing where they franchise tagged him?
They pulled his franchise tag.
Okay, that's what it was.
He was gonna sign it, and they pulled it.
Josh Norman.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of. Because I'm like, I thought that we had a corner that did the same thing.
Yeah, they pulled it because they're assholes.
The other question, basically, for this defense is, do you expect them to be pretty much the same that they were last year? 5th in yards per game, 4th. What does Josh Allen add to this team?
I do expect them to be as good as they were before, potentially even a little bit better. Josh Allen, I think he's going to struggle to get playing time. I think he's going to get playing time, but he's not going to get a ton. And people who are going to draft him, or not draft him, people who are going to put him on their watch for...
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, are going to be a little disappointed.
Because, I mean, right now, our lads has him as a defensive end in the system. And it's like you've got Calais Campbell, you've got Yanis Yakue, I hope I said that right. You've got guys like Dwayne Smoot. Like, these guys are all going to be chomping at the bit to get, like, to eat.
Yeah, and Josh Allen's totally going to get playing time, but it's not going to be a guarantee. It's not going to be right off the bat, potentially. You know, I sit here and I look at this team defensively, and the thing that's going to help them out is a more competent offense. Is Nick Foles not turning the ball over, completing his passes.
Not being on the team a million minutes a game.
Right? Leonard Fournette hopefully being healthy, that's going to help them out a ton. That defense is going to be a little bit more well-rested because you could tell, they were exhausted by the second half of every game. And we even had, of course, Jalen Ramsey being like, oh, we can't talk about what's wrong, but we both know what's wrong.
You know the problem. I know the problem. Let's just say that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, well, that problem is gone now. So it should all be better.
Now, here's something that just popped into my head that I will ask you, and this goes back to Jalen Ramsey for a hot second, is do you think now that a guy like Tom Coughlin is calling the shots as a football operations guy and not just a head coach, is it also going to be something where Tom Coughlin's like, you and that mouth do not fit what I usually like for my team chemistry?
Could be.
Like, I know Doug Marrone probably has a say, like, hey, this is what he's actually like in the locker room.
And then Tom says, Doug, stop. You shut your mouth. You know, and it's totally possible, and that might be a reason why they do end up trading him potentially. I don't really know. But Tom Coughlin also likes to win, and Tom Coughlin's had big personalities on his teams in the past. So I don't think that is necessarily a deterrent in the way it might be for like a Bill Belichick. But if you're not producing as well, then Tom Coughlin, I think, is going to be that guy to say, no, you got to go.
And then last but not least, the schedule. This is something that we're going to jump into each and every team with the Jaguars. Just to lay it out for the AFC South, They play their own division, obviously. Then it looks like they play the NFC South, the AFC West, and then their intermittent games are an AFC East opponent and a AFC East and an AFC North opponent. So like in this one, the Bengals and the Jets are the two added ones to the Jaguars. What are your thoughts about
Fun stuff.
This schedule? Because the first thing that jumps out to me, 3 of the first 5 games on the road.
Well, not only on the road, but they've got the Chiefs, they've got the Texans, they've got that Broncos game. That's a tough defense. And the Panthers are a tough team, especially defensively, especially when you're on the road. Then you got to play the Saints again. It starts difficult.
Yeah.
Do not, and especially for a team where Nick Foles has to get reacquainted to a new offense. He's got to get reacquainted to a new team. You got a guy like Leonard Fournette who wants to shake the rust off and get ready to play again. You have a team that needs to kind of re-gel itself. It's going to take a little bit to get going, so don't be surprised if there's a little bit of that slow start, and don't be surprised if you're going to see that ESPN headline that's like, oh, Nick Foles is a bust. Sorry about that. It's going to take a little bit, but then they've got a nice thing. They've got the Bengals. They've got the Jets. They got divisional games against the Texans and then the Colts and the Titans, the Buccaneers. So they get a little stretch where they can get some of these wins. They're not going to get all of them, but they can get some of these wins, kind of get themselves moving again. Eventually they'll play the Raiders. The Falcons are a bit of a question mark. And they finish up, of course, with the Colts. So they're going to be able to win some games, but I think they're going to struggle if they're trying to get back into the playoffs. Division, I don't think they're winning the division. They can at least compete in the wild card, but it's going to be a tough competition, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-dog race in the division this year, and this will show through our preview. I'm not super high on the Titans. We'll get into that, but like with this team, I'm not going to go out and say through the first 6 weeks win-loss because I don't really know yet, but I will say at the least they're 2-4. Like I don't think this is a team because of their defense loses to Tennessee at home, loses to a team like Denver, but the other 4 are toss-ups, especially Houston because we're expecting them to be healthy. In that week 2 game, the other thing that kind of, I don't know why this pops out into my head, but it's kind of like that's interesting. If you look at the times of their games, only one primetime game, and it's a Thursday night game week 3. Like, this is a team where I don't know if it's because they were last in their division last year. I don't know if it's because maybe ratings-wise, the NFL is thinking like, hey, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not as popular and are not going to bring in an audience to that prime time. I just find it funny. Not one Sunday night football game, not one Monday night football game. The only primetime game is, hey, we'll give you a Thursday night football game on NFL Network week 3 against the Titans.
And they play a West division, so they're going to get quite a few of those 3 o'clock games.
Yeah.
So they'll have some late afternoon games too. But yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting much out of Jacksonville this year.
And
besides Jacksonville fans.
Yet again, late by end of the season. Like this is a team where I feel like no matter how hard the schedule is, I think they can overcome it. And that's the big thing of like Nick Foles. How early is he going to gel to where, oh man, if we would have beat the Chiefs, beat the Texans early on, those would have been huge wins for us. That's probably what Jacksonville fans might say. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Jaguar fans, what do you think about your team heading into 2019? Let us know down below.